Welcome back to the Mid-Year YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're diving back into the Centerfield 65 Corvette. I'm going to show you how to remove your convertible C2 and C3 Decklid Hinge assemblies. We're going to rebuild the structure in them, put new springs in them. We're going to replace the rear body mount as well as the body mount cage nut, and then we're also going to put a new cross member in for the rear deck. So we've got a lot of work to do, so be sure to stick around. So it's time to address the Decklid hinges on this car. So you can see that they're both a little bit rusty. This one has a spring, this one does not. So I need to first remove the deck lid and work on getting these hinge assemblies out. Those bolts on the bottom really don't look like bolts anymore, so that's going to be fun to get out. And then I'm sure the bolts on top don't look much like bolts either. So it's going to be a fight to get these things out, and then I have to do some rust treating, some repairs, get some new springs on here, and put a new cross member in the rear deck. The fiberglass one's good, but the metal one might be a little rusty, so we'll go ahead and service that while we're in here, and then we should be able to put the deck lid back on and move on to the rest of the car. So I got both deck lid hinges out. All these bolts in the back surprisingly came out fairly well. There's two in the top here, and then the ones at the bottom I had to grind the heads off of. And you can see that, well, these are pretty well rotten. The driver's side one's a little better. It had the spring on it. This is the little tang that holds the spring. This one is completely missing. So I was afraid, which I'm kind of glad I did. I heated up the spring just to relax it a little bit because I really did not want this to break off and the spring to go shooting into the rear deck or to attack me. So I took some pressure off of it and removed it from the top, pulled the spring out, and then that made the removal a little bit easier. Just be careful if you're using heat. I have new bottom tangs for these guys, but since it's rotten into here, they actually sell this whole U section with this thing already on it. So I think I'm gonna go that direction. I drilled out the spot welds to remove the lower part of the hinge, and I soaked the top part in Evapo-Rest, and it actually turned out really nice. So now I need to get this guy cleaned up, drill some holes, put some weld-through primer on here, and get this section welded together. And I took some measurements before I removed it, so I know how tall to make this. And then we're gonna get this thing primed and painted to get ready to go back into the car. So I pretty much wrapped up on the deck lid hinges. I just have to put the springs on. I shot them in some paint, so while that's curing, I'm gonna work on getting this cross member in. So I stole this from another chunk. This goes under the rear deck. So with the deck lid off, you can see a little bit better, but right under here, there's a really rusty flange, and there's a cross member that goes right under here that has a piece of metal on it. So that one on this car is rotten out, so I have to get that off. And then the bolts are broken out in here for the body mount, as well as that held the deck lid hinges in place. So I need to put new body mounts in this thing anyway, so I'm gonna remove all these solid rivets. So I have my new cross member installed. It was kind of hard to get some footage of it, but you can see there is a cross member under here. I just used some pop rivets to hold it in place. And now it's time to put in the new body mount. So inside the car, there is a cage nut that holds the nut for your body mount, and this is what's left of the original nut, and this cage was completely missing. So typically these would be solid riveted in. You've seen me do that numerous times, but in this case, because the body's on the frame, I'm going to use these little weld studs. They're 1/4 weld studs that have like the same size head, basically the same thickness, but instead of peening them over, I'll just be able to tighten it up. So I'm going to use those instead. I have to drill the hole in these out a little bit, and then I'm either going to pop rivet these in place or solid rivet them as well. So I'll go ahead and get this mounted up first, go ahead, get this in, and then we can work on getting our Decklid hinges in. And then to show you this guy, you know, it's not too bad here, but here's not good. So it's a good thing to, we decided to replace this cross member while we're in there and everything's already torn apart. So now it's time to install the spring and the Decklid hinges, and this spring needs to be stretched about 2 inches so that you can easily get it installed in the middle slot and at the bottom tang down here. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this, but what I did is I went on YouTube and I found this Mid-Year Mitch guy, which make sure you give that video a thumbs up and you hit the subscribe button. That really helps out a guy that's not the one who's talking behind the camera now. But this floor jack looks vaguely familiar. So what I'm gonna do, actually had to refresh myself on this, but I'm just gonna take the spring, hook it on the bottom of the axle, and then hook it through this axle right through here, jack it up, and then we're gonna put something in the middle, like extra trailing arm shims or big washers. This area of the spring is 2 inches. We need to make this 4 inches. So we need to add about 2 inches of spacers in here. And then we're gonna carefully take the spring, hook it up in here, put the spring in, open it up, all the stuff will go shooting out, and this thing will be safely preloaded. So the deck lid put on and it's all adjusted pretty well. So I'm happy with the way this turned out. So you guys saw in the past, I did a video where I replaced the deck lid hinges on a car that was all torn apart. So it was a lot easier to service them that way. But I did this one with the car together because I wanted to show you that you can still take these out. They're a little tricky. There are 3 bolts. There are 2 back here and 1 down below. Luckily, the 2 up top came out with really no problem, and the 1 down low, I just had to grind the head off. But just to recap everything that we did, I put a new lower section of the deck lid hinge on, put new springs in. We went and replaced the body mount cage nut, and then we put a new cross member across the back. So that's all stuff you can do with the body on the chassis. Some of them are a little bit tricky, but I definitely recommend, if your car is a little questionable in the rust department, go ahead, take your deck lid hinges out and check the bottoms of them, because if they're rotten, these springs can fail or the tang can fail. And I've seen a subscriber sent me a picture after I made the last video on this topic. The spring broke and it shot up here and it put a crack in the fiberglass here on a car that was already done. So if you're restoring it, I highly recommend you go ahead and check these out, at least crawl back here and look at it as a minimum. But definitely, I recommend, they're not that expensive to take out and to go ahead and service, and you'll be happy with it, because also the deck lid holds itself up now. It would not do that before. So I'm really happy with that. Now the next step is going to be to locate the body It's just sitting on here right now, but I need to locate it, get it bolted down. We gotta take the doors off, and I gotta put the hinge pillars in here, get some more bonding strips on here, and it's time to get this front end sorted out. So in the next video, hopefully I'll be getting the front end to fit and gluing it on. And then after that, we have a little bit of body work to do on this thing. Then it's time to get it running and driving and send it home. So both of these two will be leaving the shop here pretty soon. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Did a lot of work in this video, spread out over a couple of weeks. I've just been picking at it slowly. So now we finished a big project, and now it's time to get on to the front end in the next video. So I got a lot of work to do, and I'll catch you guys later.